Right, good morning everybody and welcome to step 2 of our decimals, which is decimals as fractions. Before I go into my introduction task, I'm just going to look at some decimals as fractions. So, if I paste my place value grid just here with my pen. Now, decimals are numbers that are less than one whole number. So if I place my 0 for my whole numbers, for my ones, and I look at 0.1. Now notice 0.1 is 1/10. So 0.1 is equivalent to, as a fraction, 1/10. If I look at 0.2, so I write my decimal number, that is equivalent to 2/10. And so on until I get to 0.9, which is 9/10. Now 2/10 is also equivalent to 1/5. Now if I look at 0.25, 0.25 is 2/10 and 5/100. That is actually 1/4 of a whole number. I'll do another place value grid just up here so I can show you some more. Now if 0.25 is one whole, knowing that 10/10 equals one whole, 5/10 is half of one whole, so 0.5 is equivalent to 1/2. 0.75 is actually 7/10 and 5/100. That's actually 3/4. That's 3 lots of 0.25. Right, let's have a look at some hundredths now. If I put 0.01, there are no ones, no tenths, but there is 1/100th. There are 100 hundredths in a whole number, so this is shown as 1/100th. I can do all this all the way up to, for example, my favourite number, 99. So I'm going to place in 0.99 here. And 0.99 is equivalent to, as a fraction, 99 hundredths. So hopefully that will give you some clues for today's and tomorrow's lesson. Right, let's have a look at our introduction task. It says here, match the statements to the decimals. So we have 7 ones. Hopefully you'll be able to do this quicker than me. We have 4/10, and we have 5/100. So that is 7.45. Next one, 5 ones, 7/10, 4/100. Don't forget your decimal point when you're doing this. That's 5.74. 4 ones, 7/10, 5/100. And the last one should match here. I'll just do it now. Should be 5.47. Right, let's have a look at our first activity. It says here, circle the fraction and decimal which match the picture. Now what we've got here is we've got a bar. A bar is showing our whole. This bar has been split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 equal parts. So it's been split into tenths. How many tenths has been shaded? Is 9. So we have 9 tenths that's been shaded. I can show this as my place value. 9 tenths. We haven't hit a hole yet. So remember, we need to place our 0 in our ones. And then 9 tenths. Now 9 tenths is 0.9, so I can circle this one. It's not 9 hundredths, because 9 hundredths would actually be 0.09. We haven't actually hit a tenth yet, so I'm not going to circle this one. I'm not going to circle this one, because that's still showing 9 hundredths. However, 90 hundredths is actually correct, because if I place a place value holder just in my hundredths, just here, 9 tenths is actually also 90 hundredths. So I'm going to circle this answer here. Right, let's have a look at our second task. It says here, match the fractions to their decimal equivalents. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do my place value grid. Remember, we're looking at decimal numbers, so I'm going to place a 0 in my ones, and I'm looking at 6 hundredths. So 6 hundredths, I haven't actually hit a tenth yet, because there's 10 hundredths in a tenth. So my first answer for 6 hundredths is 0.06. My next one, 6 tenths. Again, ones. I'm going to place a 6 in my tenths. So 6 tenths is actually 0.6. My final one is 65 hundredths, which is 6 tenths and 5 hundredths. 0.65. Right, let's have a look at our next question. It says here, complete the table below. So we have our fractions just on this left-hand side. We have our decimals on the right-hand side. So first of all, we have 25 hundredths. So I'm going to place my place value grid. 25 hundredths, it's a decimal, it's 0. We have, I'm going to circle it, we have 2 tenths, and we have 5 hundredths, which is 25 hundredths altogether. So our answer is 0.25. .07 is actually, now I'm going to do my place value grid just above this decimal fraction here. It's actually no ones, no tenths, and 7 hundredths. We haven't got, I'm just going to circle it, we haven't got 10 hundredths yet, so it's not a tenth yet. So we need to place it here, it's 7 hundredths. Now going back to my first activity before we even started our introduction, going back to my first little bit of input, we were talking about a half, and a half of 1 in tenths is 5 tenths, because there's 10 tenths in a whole number. So it is 5 tenths. And I'm going to go back up to my grid just up here. So half of a 1 is 5 tenths, which is 0.5. Right, let's have a look at our next activity. True or false? 3/4 equals 3.4. Now, if we look at this, understanding our fractions, that this hasn't actually hit a whole number yet. Okay, so we know that this is false. However, I just want to work out what actually 3/4 of 1 is. Now I know a quarter of 1, going back to my original input, part of my input before we started our introduction activity, 0.25 equals 1/4. If I times that by 3, I'm applying this rule, 3 lots of 0.25, sorry, do apologise, it's actually 0.75. So I know that this statement is false. Right, hopefully if you pay attention to that first part of the input, you shouldn't have a problem with the work today. Good luck, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.